Good evening, and welcome to Burrillville School Committee's regular monthly meeting. It's November 14th, 2023, and we're in the we're going to open at 5:30, and we'll convene right now in open session. Roll call, everyone's here except Jill Calapai and Sean Bozon. They are both excused. And we'll start it with the Pledge of Allegiance. And now I'll call the roll and see if we will be going into executive session. Let's start with Victor.
Yes.
Shall we go into executive?
Yes.
Okay. Should I make a motion?
Need a
for
motion
that?
first, yeah.
Okay, make a motion to go into executive
I'll make the
session.
motion to go into executive session.
Dennison makes a motion.
Second.
Terry seconds. Okay.
Should I clarify emergency
Yes.
operations plan, Rhode Island General Laws 42 to 46.5, to clarify the reason, just to
Okay, thank you.
amend that motion.
Thank you. Victor?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
Yes for me? Terry?
Yes.
Yes.
David? Okay. So moved. And now we're in executive session. Okay, good evening again, and we are reconvening in open session. Today's meeting is November 14th, 2023. We are in the Burrillville High School, and it is 6 p.m., is that right?
Yes, it is.
Okay, good. And we're going to, actually, we just finished an executive session and no votes were taken. So, we are working on,
Is there a motion to seal the minutes?
okay, can I have a motion to seal the minutes?
I'll make a motion to seal the minutes.
Terry? We have a
Second.
Second by Don? Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oh, do I have to,
Yep, you have to do a roll for that
we're
one.
done? Okay, thank you. Okay, the next thing we're talking about is recognition. Do we have any recognition tonight?
We have none tonight.
None tonight, thank you. Consent agenda, approval of minutes, and the minutes are October 11th, the regular meeting, and November 7th, the budget workshop meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
And second by Victor, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Warrants and invoices, do we have any tonight? I don't
We have
believe so.
a warrant and invoices are in your packet. There are no bids tonight. For a motion to approve the warrants and invoices.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the 23-24 school warrant number 4 for the month of October, dated November 14th. Grand total expenditures, $2,871,933.24.
Do I have
Second.
a motion, second, with Terry?
Yep.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved. And bids.
There are no bids tonight.
I believe we have bids tonight, thank you. Number 6, presentation by the public to the school committee. And having none, I guess, we're going to move on. Public comment. None of that either. Everybody's happy, good. Personnel, leaves of absence, retirements, resignations, and appointments.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to accept the resignation of Julianne Sachi, technology teacher, Burrillville Middle School, effective November 3rd, 2023, and Nathan Ventura, behavioral specialist, Burrillville Middle School, effective November 21st, 2023.
Second? Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by David. All in favor?
Aye.
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 And a motion to receive and file the subsequent appointments.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Terry. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Whole business, fiscal year '24 Burrillville School Department budget update.
Make a motion to receive and file.
Second.
Second by David. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Fiscal year '24 rink budget update.
Motion to receive and file.
Second.
Second by David again. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Superintendent's report.
Hey, thank you, Chair St. Pierre. I have a couple of items. I'll start by welcoming our student representative. Alicia Bella Livingston is here tonight, so
Here she is.
Alicia, welcome. And moving on, I just want to report a couple of items tonight, starting with our Stage 2 application to the Department of Education. So as you recall, our necessity of school construction Stage 2 application was submitted in September. We received feedback from the Department of Education. We're working to address all the comments, and we'll be resubmitting that at the end of the month. To this end, there's a resolution on the agenda tonight on the new business, discussion/vote on a Stage 2 application to RIDE. So when we get to the new business, I'll explain what that resolution is, but we're looking for approval for that so that we can move on with our Stage 2 application for school construction projects. Again, when we get to new business, either Bill Robinson or I can give you more details on what that resolution exactly means, but it's basically saying that we will follow all necessary requirements and rules as far as appliances and Energy Star ratings and things like that. But that, again, that's on the new business. Excuse me. A couple of other items. Robin and I will be meeting with DATCO in the next few weeks to address some bus concerns that have come our way. We've asked our school principals to send us a list of concerns that we'll discuss with DATCO management at that meeting. Certainly keep you posted as this develops, but I do want to note that In comparison to last year, we've seen much better, we've had much better response from DATCO. We've had overall a much better experience this year when compared to last. Still have some issues that we're trying to work out, so again, the next week or two, we should have a meeting, and I can brief you after that meeting takes place. Moving on, we've developed a virtual plan for review from the Department of Education. It's currently out for feedback with some of our educators. We will be scheduling a final meeting to review the virtual plan and then submit it for approval to both the school committee and following that approval to the Department of Education. So we are looking for a volunteer school committee member to attend the final meeting to go over that plan prior to requesting school committee approval, hopefully in December. So just want to mention that this is not something that we plan on using. It's basically in case we have a really bad winter or there's another emergency that necessitates the use of a virtual day for some reason. As you know, we have 4 snow days built into our schedule starting the week of June 17th. But in case we have more than 4 snow days, hopefully not, but in case we do, we want to at least have the option of using a virtual day, and we will need both school committee approval and RIDE approval of our plan before we are able to exercise that. So that's kind of where we are in the process. So again, we would need a school committee member to volunteer for that. Certainly doesn't have to be tonight. I could send something out in my weekly update to you all, see if anyone is interested once we have a date for the meeting, and then that will be in front of you for approval at the December school committee meeting. And my final item, big congratulations to our state champion girls volleyball team, beating a tough Tolman team 3-2 in last weekend's championship match. I reached out to Coach Carlson today, congratulate her and the team, and let her know that the school committee typically likes to recognize the team as a future meeting with a citation from the school committee. So we'll work on scheduling that. I asked her to let me know if the December school committee meeting would work or if they want to push it back later in the year due to scheduling conflicts. If most of the girls are playing another sport in the winter, it might be tough to have a Tuesday meeting, but we'll try to work something out to get them here and get them those citations and honor them for their state championship. It's, I believe, only the second girls volleyball championship in school history and the first one in over 30 years. So congratulations to them.
We've had a volleyball team for 30 years.
My sister was on that team that made it to the state championship.
years
Yeah,
ago. Wow.
1990, yeah. Yep.
So yes, then I guess we have.
Yep.
And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. The next thing we're doing is reports of school committee subcommittees.
We skipped administrative.
Sorry.
reports.
I'm sorry.
Don't forget about Julie.
Almost missed.
Administrators' reports, we're going to have, and she would like us to, right? State assessment presentation by Julie Mayo. Thank
Here
you.
you go.
Thank you.
Almost missed you.
Check that one.
I would have just come back in December.
So we have 2 presentation screens. There's one behind us for our
Screen's
members
black.
of the viewing audience.
That's good.
We'll have the screen right in front of you that Justin's setting
timed
up
out.
now to follow along.
In just a moment.
That'll also be broadcast on our YouTube
There we
screen.
go. Quick review. You may recall, excuse me, we had our first administration of the RICAS, and the first time we used the PSAT and SAT as our measures for high school in the 2017-2018 year. And then bad things happened. And so we returned to those assessments in the 2020 and 2021 year, and that became our new baseline. So this year, the 22-23 year or last year's assessment, 22-23, is really the first time that we're able to actually talk about a trend, because it takes 3 years of data before we can really say anything kind of even remotely definitive about the outcomes. So it's exciting to be able to talk about that, and again, mostly because it's really good news. So I'm going to preface this for you also by saying that as part of the Learn 365 initiative, the state of Rhode Island has set a goal to meet or exceed Massachusetts' performance on the MCAS by the year 2030. And as part of that, preliminary goals were given to each of the districts in Rhode Island that we need to meet in order for the state to then be able to meet its big goal. So just so that you know, our goal for the 2022-2023 year was to increase the percentage of students who were proficient or exceeding in both ELA and math by 2% each. So in ELA, we actually went up 5 percentage points for proficiency, which is fantastic. We went from 25% in 2022 up to 30% this year overall, which is a really huge growth and exciting for us. Our pre-pandemic levels were at 30%, and so we're officially back at our pre-pandemic levels, which is also really exciting. And again, our goal was to hit 27% proficiency, and we got 30%. So for ELA, that looks really good. And then for math, our goal was to hit 19%, and we got to 23%. So almost 6% growth in math this year, which was, again, amazing. So I just want to take a minute, too, to congratulate not just our students, but also our teachers who have worked so hard. RICAS scores, PSAT and SAT scores, and GSA scores, they're not everything, but they're something. And they are a really good snapshot of the work that's happening in the district. And it's the result of a lot of different things, not the least of which is the hard work of the teachers. So I just want to make sure that we acknowledge that. So big exciting stuff for us. This is our comparison to what's happening across the state. So you can see we're not quite at the state level overall, but our growth is stronger in Burrillville than the state's growth has been overall, which is nice. So we're closing the gap. So you can see in ELA, the state had an increase of, well, just so you know, the state had an increase of 2% proficiency overall, and we had that increase of 5%. In math, the state had an increase of 3% proficiency. We had an increase of 6%. So again, closing that gap. And the other piece that's really nice for us is that we're reducing the population that's in need of urgent intervention. Those numbers in red are students who are not meeting the benchmarks at all and really are far behind in terms of their grade level performance and knowledge and skills. And so what we're doing is actually reducing the number of students in the red while we're also increasing the number of students in that blue and green, which is a pretty big deal, because if we continue to just focus on the kids who are proficient and exceeding and never pay attention to the kiddos who are struggling a little bit, we're not ever going to reach our goals. So we still have those big numbers in the middle in that yellow who are partially proficient, but those numbers are growing because we're pulling students up from the bottom, not dropping them down from the top. So just like last year, you might recall that there were some changes to the cut scores. And so the cut scores are like the number at which students are, that set the difference between proficient and not proficient, or proficient and partially proficient. So what happened last year was that there were shifts in some of the cut scores, so it felt a little bit like we weren't comparing apples to apples. So for example, in 2022, let's say in 3rd grade, the cutoff score to be proficient might have been 330, and then the following year that cutoff score became 334. So what we tried to do was to see, and in some cases it dropped, it might have gone down to 328. So it happened again this year. It looks like what's happening is that they're starting to level off now. There were fewer shifts, and the shifts weren't quite as dramatic in the cut scores. But I still wanted you to see, because we want to be able to see, what would have happened if the scores had stayed the same. So if you look at our ELA performance, and I know this is small, but moving from left to right, you can see grade 3, grade 4. So the dark blue line furthest to your left shows what our STAR 360 predictions were for performance. The sort of next gradation of blue to the right of that is the actual 2022% proficiency. And then the next one is our actual 2023% proficiency. And the palest blue furthest to the right is what the score would have been if the cut scores hadn't changed. So in grades 3 and 4, there were no changes to the cut scores. So they are what they are. In grades 5, 6, 7, and 8, the cut scores actually decreased a little bit. And so you can see we had some growth that might not have been there or might not have looked like it was there if those cut scores hadn't changed. So the scores might not have been quite as high. And again, I think that what we're looking at is this leveling off of trying to kind of get everything on an even keel again, because there were some dramatic swings last year. But still, showing some pretty good movement in each of the grade levels. In math, similarly, we had grades 3, 4, 6, and 7 had their cut scores bumped up, and then they went down in grade 5, and then in grade 8 there was no change. So you can see what Star 360 predicted, where we were in 2022, where we were in 2023, and then where we might have been if the cut scores hadn't changed. And I have to keep drawing your attention back to grade 3 and grade 4, because those scores are so strong, and that's showing the impact of the work that's happening K 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's kind of moving up through the grade levels. Hopefully next year we're really going to see that bump in grade 5, and then again in grade 6, and so on. It's going to take a few years before it makes its way across the middle school, but we're already starting to see really positive shifts in those trends. So our PSAT and our SAT data are still remaining relatively strong. We are showing more growth and higher scores in our SAT scores than the state is in both ELA and math, which is nice. Our proficiency levels are not quite back where they used to be before the pandemic. And again, that's sort of been a trend statewide. The scores have kind of shifted downward, but we're getting there. So just so that you know, in the 18-19 year, our ELA proficiency was 57% on the SAT. And then back in the 18-19 year, the math was 37%. So we're getting there. It's just a little bit slower to move than the RICAS scores. Our science data is staying pretty consistent. And if you recall, all the way back in our pilot year for NGSA, our overall performance was at 30%. So we're up to 32% overall, again, pre-pandemic levels. Pretty good growth across the board, especially in grades 8 and 11. We had some big jumps and a little bit better than the state overall, which is nice. And science, by the way, is the last curriculum area where we have to implement new high-quality instructional materials. That hasn't happened yet. So these changes are happening without new curriculum in place. So hopefully once that process is done, we'll be able to see those scores bump up even more. I wanted to talk a little bit with you about what's working and why this is happening, or why we think it's happening now that we can talk about the trends, especially in light of the demographic shifts that have been happening in our district over the past few years. All right, so as you know, we've had a significant turnover in teachers, right? We've got something like 40 new staff that have come on since, well, over the past 2 years. And we've had multiple situations where we've hired teachers and then they've left and a new teacher has come in. We've had teachers who've turned over on the very first day of school, teachers who are turning over a week into the school year, leaving us in the middle of the school year and bringing new teachers in. There's a huge impact when there's that much staff turnover, because implementation of high quality curriculum isn't just buying a whole bunch of books and putting them in front of teachers and going, here, good luck, right? It's a start. It's important for us all to have that commonality across classrooms, but there's a huge lift for teachers in terms of professional learning that goes along with that. Not because they aren't awesome teachers, because they are, but because new materials bring with them some shifts in instructional practice. And for everybody to kind of build that sense of consistency that we want for all of our students across all of our grade levels, it takes time. Not only that, the first year of implementation of any new curriculum, there's actually a terminology for it. You see an implementation dip. Usually you see scores go down because teachers are shifting away from what's familiar and what they've become accustomed to and what they're really good at delivering, and they're trying to learn all this new content and these new skills and this new instructional practice all at the same time. And so usually we see the scores fall a little bit the first year and then bump back up the second year. But if I only have a teacher for 1 year and then that teacher goes away and there's a brand new teacher, that teacher's starting all over again, right? Learning that same material. So what's happening is that the students in those classes, again, in front of really good people, because we work really hard to bring good people on, but they don't have the amount of experience and time that it takes to get to a place where they're fluent with the new curriculum. And that makes a difference. So I want to point out to you, for example, in grade 7. So grade 7 is the only team that has had consistent math teachers for the past few years. And you can see evidence of the growth that's happened. You've got kids moving from 13% proficient to 19.4% proficient in 1 year, because we've got teachers who have been with us, who have been through this process of professional learning for 2 solid years and have gotten a lot of coaching and feedback and support and have engaged with us in all of this hard work, and it makes a huge difference for the kids. If you look down below, you've got Steer Farm Elementary School as an example, because in this case, Steer Farm has actually had more consistent staff than Callahan. Callahan has seen more turnover in staff. So when we're looking at a situation like grade 3 in 21-22, where they were at 18.3%, and then they moved up to grade 4, again with teachers who have now been through this process of this new curriculum for 3 years, they're at 37.8% proficient. It's a huge jump. And it's hard work for the kids, but it's also a lot of hard work for the teachers. And having that consistency in place makes a huge difference. The other piece that where you can really see a difference too is even for the teachers themselves. So 3rd grade teachers at 18.3% in 21-22, and it was 43.5% proficient in 22-23 in 3rd grade. Different cohort of students, but that big a jump can't be accounted for by just a different group of students alone. That's a huge, huge leap in proficiency. And a lot of that comes from, again, the professional learning that teachers are going through and engaging in that work with us and working with our instructional coaches to ensure that quality of instruction for our students. The other piece we really see that's kind of hard to put in a little slide is growth. So again, thinking about the consistent 4th grade teachers across the district, teachers who have been working with coaches and have had an opportunity to implement this curriculum now for 2 solid years. When we talk about growth, we look at whether students are making low growth across the course of a year, typical growth, which is what we would say would be the average amount of growth for any student at any time, and then high growth, which is beyond what our expectations would be. So just for example, we'll take our 3 most consistent 4th grade teachers. One of them had in 2021-22, 0% of students making high growth. In 22-23 was up to 33.3% making high growth. One of them had 11% making high growth in 21-22, 26.3 in 22-23. Another teacher started with 35.9% making high growth in 21-22 and was up to 52% making high growth in 22-23. So again, sometimes the scores don't always reflect what's going on, because if you have students who are starting down lower, it's harder to close the gap, and you may not see those huge leaps in scores, but the growth tells a big story too. And what that shows us is that we're reaching more and more of our students and bringing them into that circle of success because they're growing and closing those gaps. They're making more growth than a typical student would in a typical year. Oops, sorry. So I just wanted to kind of end by showing you how all these pieces fit together. You know, I talk a lot about the test scores and certainly about the high quality curriculum, but it's more than all that. And as I was alluding to earlier, right, so the high quality curriculum materials, that's the books and the stuff that we're giving to teachers, but the professional learning that comes along with that, and we're talking so many hours of professional learning, days and days and days and days and days of professional learning for teachers. And that's just what we're doing with them, not to mention what they're doing on their own. All of that is part of that tier 1 when we think about the triangle that is our 100% of all of our students, right? Tier 1 is supposed to reach 80 to 85% of our students. So in a perfect world, we have a core instruction, core curriculum that reaches 85% of our students, and they are successful with that. Those other pieces that are part of Tier 1, when we think about the social and emotional piece and the behavioral piece, are PBIS and conscious discipline. You've heard people talking about those. And a huge factor in that is our instructional coaching that's been going on. Our ELA and math instructional coaches are spending a lot of time working with our elementary teachers again, on those best practices and really thinking deeply about how we're implementing those materials. That tier 2 level is that next level of students who may not quite be getting everything that they need in tier 1. Again, we're probably talking about hopefully 10 to 15% of students at the most. And those students are working in groups with targeted interventions, with research-based interventions to hopefully help them fill those gaps. So in this case, we're using Lexia to help fill the gaps for reading. We're using a program called Connecting Math Concepts to help fill the gaps in math. And then that tiny little triangle on top is really that 3 to 5% of students for whom all the rest of the stuff isn't working, and that's where we can really look at them child by child and say, okay, what does this student need above and beyond all those other pieces that we have in place to help him or her be successful in school? And Star 360 is on the outside because that assessment that we do 3 times a year, plus using it for progress monitoring, helps us figure out which students are on track to meet benchmark, which students might need a little bit of support, which students need a lot of support, and then how are we monitoring their progress along the way so we know that we're doing the right things. All of these things fit together very cleanly, and if any piece of that bottom tier 1 is missing, the rest of it kind of tumbles. Because if we're not meeting the needs of 80 to 85% of our students in that green part of the triangle, then we're overwhelmed by the number of students who need intervention and additional supports in the yellow and the red. It's more than classroom teachers can do. It's more than our interventionists can do. And it leaves kids outside that circle of success that we were talking about. So I say all this because I want to emphasize how important it is for all those pieces to work together, and also emphasize that we're finally in a place now working on curriculum, working on professional learning, working on instructional coaching, building our intervention process correctly so that we're actually on the precipice of meeting the needs of all of our students all of the time, which is amazing stuff. And none of it can happen without that bottom piece in place. But now that that bottom piece is pretty solid, we're starting to see everything move exponentially, and that's really good stuff. So, any questions?
Anyone?
I just have a comment, Mrs. Mayu. So I just want to thank you for the presentation and for the committee. As you can see, Julie gets really into this. She's very passionate about curriculum instruction.
I think the word you're looking for is geek.
She's a bit of a data geek, if you will, no pun intended. But speaking for Julie and the whole district, we're showing some great gains, but we're certainly not where we want to be. We've got a lot more work to do, but we know the keys to getting all of our students where we want to be, getting our test results. And it's not about the test results. It's about students achieving at the levels we know they can achieve. It's not about the, teaching to the test or any of that kind of stuff. It's about measuring effective instruction, putting high-quality instructional materials in the hands of our teachers that are well-trained, getting consistent instruction to our students across the board, strong, consistent instruction, and then, as Julie mentioned, targeted supports for students in need. So if we have those 3 things in place, high-quality instructional materials, consistent teaching and consistent instruction, and targeted supports for students, then you will continue to see those numbers go up and go up. And it's, again, it's not about the test results, it's more about our students demonstrating growth from year to year, and our teachers having the tools and the ability to be able to push that curriculum forward with the support that they need. So, we're in a good place right now, certainly not where we all want to end up, but we're on the right road, and considering that we're, only a few years out from a worldwide pandemic, we're in a really good spot. Thank you,
So
Mrs. May.
you predict, Julie, that, because you had mentioned like the 4th grade, the scores were much higher, but then they kind of dropped down. So you predict, like, in the upcoming years that they're just going to keep going up because of these kids have got that background, the 1st, 2nd, 3rd grade. And
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, right. So our
That's
kindergarten,
exciting, yeah.
1st and 2nd grade teachers are going into their 2nd full year of implementation right now. So it just puts, it just puts students in a better position
Yep.
to access the curriculum at the next grade level, right? And teachers are really working hard to make sure that they're doing that. So we should hope, I'm really hopeful for next year. Our gains this year were fantastic, and I'm really hopeful for next year too.
Good.
Sylvia?
Can I ask- Everybody else? Can I ask, how does that work when you're, the kids that you're targeting? How do you target them? And my concern, again, is for those kids who really need the help, what happens next year? Because we're going to have less funding.
So, I mean, the good news is that we still, so a couple of things. So for students in that yellow tier, right, the ones who are struggling just a little bit, we can rely on evidence-based and research-based programs that we can do with them in whole groups, right? So Lexia is a good example. It's computer-based. Students can do it at their own pace. There's the prescriptive amount of time that they're supposed to spend on it based on where they are and how far below grade level. And we can reasonably predict that if they do that, they're going to close the gaps. And so what we do then is we say, okay, if I've got 5 or 6 kids in my class and they're all using Lexia and they're doing it the way it's supposed to be happening, and 4 of them are soaring and doing just fine, and then 2 of them are not, then I can say, then those 2 must need something else, right? So what we're trying to do is really whittle down the number of students who need that very, very individualized, very specific support to the smallest number possible, not because we don't want to give it, but because we want it to be manageable. And we want students to be as involved in their core instruction as much as possible and not doing other things on top of it. So special education supports are part of that red triangle. Our reading specialists are part of that red triangle. Our math interventionists are part of that red triangle. So there are people in the building who are providing those supports. And the reality is that that individualized instruction also isn't tied to a specific body. A teacher can also provide that support if we have the time and the schedule built in for that, like for example, in an intervention block. But it takes a lot of coordination and a lot of time.
Do elementary schools have intervention blocks too?
We do. Most grade levels have them built into their schedules, and they do it by pod or by grade. Some teachers are teamed, so they decide, for example, intervention block is happening on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 9 to 9:30. And so what's nice about that is that the teachers agree nobody's teaching any new content during that time. So students can, and there's a shared, the students are shared by all the teachers who are involved, so that might be special education, reading specialists, classroom teachers. Students go and do what they need to do for that intervention, and they know that they're not missing any kind of core instruction. So, yeah. The principals and teachers work really hard to coordinate that, to provide as much as possible.
Thank you.
Sure. Thanks.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. And the next thing we're doing is reports of school committee subcommittees.
I'll go first,
Okay,
Sylvia, if you
thank
want.
you.
Nothing, BPAC meeting was held last Wednesday, right?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. November 17th, they're going to have their first game night at the Jesse Smith Library from 5 to 8. It's grades 6 through 12. They did this last year, if you remember, and it seemed to be very successful, so they're going to do it again this year. November 22nd, BPAC is hosting a Thanksgiving movie at the Assembly Theater at 2 p.m. There's no school. That's a day before Thanksgiving, so it's free to all the students. And I don't remember what she said, what the movie they were going to show, but 2 p.m. at the Assembly Theater in Harrisville.
Charlie Brown's Thanksgiving.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
Yeah. One of my favorites.
That's a good one.
Yeah, that's a great one. And that's about it. I talked to Monica today, and the 5K she said was a success. We didn't quite have the number that we had last year, but she said overall it was a success. So they might look into doing something in the spring, but that's something that they're just bouncing around. So, And unfortunately, I couldn't go to the Austin T. Levy School Improvement Team meeting. My fault, didn't read my email, so, but I'll be at the next one. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, Victor.
I attended the Stair Farm Elementary SIT meeting on October 18th, and I gotta say, they got their act together over there. They have a great team. Mrs. Francis is doing a great job over there. They have goals. If you saw the numbers, if you broke it down by school, they had great numbers for their improvement. So the next one's in January. I'll be going to that one, and I look forward to sitting with them again.
Thank you very much. Anyone
All
else?
right,
David?
I'm up. I also went to school improvement team for Callahan this past Tuesday afternoon. This was my second or third meeting, so it's really, the information starting to really settle in. Pretty cool stuff over there. We have, which was kind of a first glimpse into the school improvement plan rollout, which each school has their own improvement plan, which I'm learning. So it's pretty neat to see how they organize it and the depth that it goes into. So they're in the process right now of rolling that out to the faculty at their monthly meetings. Like Terry's always talking about, a big piece of what we discuss is sharing information with parents. That's always not only sharing information with them, but engagement with the parents. So what are, kind of best practices? Speaking with Maria's all over the place, so, talking about how we can engage on their channels, social media type stuff. How are we engaging with people? The old, here's a piece of paper, pass this in, doesn't work anymore. So we're, as a group, figuring out what's our best bet and trying different things, which is pretty cool. It's not just like, hey, let's just do this one thing. It's let's try this, see how it worked, get feedback, and shift it as we go. So, awesome group of people over there. The other thing which I really love that they do a kindness project. It's pretty neat. It's a group of kids that are selected. I believe Miss Wilson heads that kindness project, and she gets a group of kids together, and they do anything and everything related to being kind. So pretty cool. They're actually trying to link up, and I think they have, with the Kindness Rocks, which is a local, I believe, a rock artist that does things and spreads rocks all over. I believe they're even trying to get a couple other kind of type things like that pulled together. So pretty cool. I think that's neat, and what a good age to engage these kids with such a simple core idea that is absolutely universal. So seems simple to us adults, but in the kids' world, like a core function of being a good human being. So I love that kindness club that they're doing over there. So as always, though, engaging with parents, getting information is still the big ticket. A very low percentage of parents are engaging, and it's seemingly like when we do send things out, there's little response. So just trying to get different ideas on how to get some different angles on things. So. But great, very productive meetings. It is, it wasn't a full house last meeting, but it's good, kind of honed in on a few things that needed review. So overall, very successful meeting for the month, so.
Thank you,
Thank you.
David. Great. And I have one, I went to the school committee chairs meeting from Rhode Island Association of School Committees, and it was October 12th at the Crown Plaza. And what they had was, they talked about legislation in the state, and apparently the constitutional right to an education is still not the law in Rhode Island. It is in Massachusetts, and that's why all of these wonderful things for education start coming out of Massachusetts. Right now, the Senate has passed that right to education for kids, and the House has only half as voted yes, which is not a good thing as of yet, but we keep working at it. And they talked about school construction reimbursement. And right now, schools are getting reimbursed as they go. they want that to happen. This has not been passed yet in the state. They were talking about AI policies, that we need to start developing policies for that, because we're going to be using it in the future. It talked about climate and culture, positive school cultures, re-engage students, reaching out to parents. Very, very similar to what Burrillville's doing right now. There is a National School Board Association annual meeting, and that is over the whole United States, and that's happening April 5th to April 10th. I'm sorry, that's the wrong one I have. I think it's April 6th to April 8th, and that's going to happen in New Orleans, if anybody would like to go. It's in the Rhode Island Association of School Committees website, so you can look it up there. They talked about buy board, and I was going to ask you about that.
About what?
Dr. Solito, sorry. And it talked about there's no charge to sign up. You're not obliged to buy anything. And I guess at one point, Texas is interested in it for anyone to help them. Have you ever heard of buy board?
I have not.
Okay, I'll give you some information
Yeah,
when
I'll
I
look
get it.
into
Okay. They also talked about charter schools and how charter schools are becoming a problem with public schools. And they also discussed the fact that as students leave our school and go to charter schools, they lose up to $18,000 each year. Parents, and basically, charter schools are good because parents want longer hours for their kids. And at the end of 12 years, if a student is in charter school for those 12 years of education, the school system has lost $250,000 per student. That's really difficult. And there's one more thing. I think I did talk about that. So basically, the thing that we're really trying to do is to get those kids to have the right for education. I'm not sure how that really works as a teacher. We've had truancy court because kids don't go to school. We have, you have to go get them. They make sure they go to school. We take attendance for all of this stuff. Yet our state says it's just a privilege and not a right. So what they're trying to do is, this is how they entitled it: all children in the United States are entitled to equal access to basic public elementary and secondary education. And that comes from the U.S. Department of Justice. So we'll hope and hope and hope that it does become a reality for our kids. Because once it does, there's more funding for it, and there's more emphasis on it, and our kids get more, it becomes much more important overall throughout the whole people in the state. So let's hope that happens sooner than not later. Has anyone else got anything else to say during this time?
Sure, just a couple things. The BEC, Burrillville Extended Care meeting was last Tuesday, which was our budget meeting. They always seem to have the meetings on the same day we're meeting. I'm just suggesting that she send all of the meeting minutes that I can just forward to you to maybe share with the group in either the weekly meeting or put it in the next month's packet, just
Okay.
to have the update on that. And today we met for the second time for the teacher contract negotiations. Nothing was really eventful other than exchanging some proposals at this point. But I think all things seem pretty good in my opinion. So, and I'll just touch on Sylvie, just not to be contentious, but philosophically and politically speaking, I do have a different opinion about the state constitution being changed to make it a right for students to
Okay.
get an education. But I could go into that another time. We could have a debate. But anyway, thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, everyone. And we'll move on. Next thing is, where am I? Correspondence and communications. Everyone's all set with that? And new business, homeschool applications comes next. Do I have
Make a motion to approve the 2 homeschool applications.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second? We have 2 seconds, that's good.
So
All in
First.
favor?
Aye.
Aye. The next thing is discussion or vote for Stage 2 application to RIDE.
motion to open?
Have a motion to open, do I have a second?
Second.
So moved. Do we have discussion or voting, or?
I can give a little background on this. So in your packet, I believe you have the school committee resolution. It's in compliance with the Northeast CHPS, which is guidance basically that's been designed to provide construction guidelines for new school projects, renovations, new schools. Basically, it's criteria that increases energy baselines for energy efficiency. And it's a requirement for any construction projects moving forward through the Department of Education. In order to qualify for reimbursement, you have to be, you have to verify that you are in compliance with the Northeast Collaborative for High Performance Schools criteria. So an acronym NECHPS, that's what it stands for. And again, it's really just about confirming that we're in all compliance with regulations for any new construction or construction projects. So for example, if you're purchasing appliances or you're doing an upgrade on a furnace, you have to make sure that they're energy efficient and they're approved, recommended within the criteria of the Northeast Collaborative for high performance school criteria. So we need I'm looking for a vote on this because we need this resolution in order to move forward with our Stage 2 application for any future construction projects.
Now, the Northeast Collaborative is New England, New York, what other part? It's just, this is on
It's,
federal level,
it's
right?
mid-Atlantic, it's the New England and mid-Atlantic states. So I don't know how far down that goes,
Okay.
probably as far as Pennsylvania, I would assume.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution.
Do I have a second?
Yeah, a second.
Second is Don. All in favor to approve?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Any opposed? So moved. That's great. Committee comments on agenda items is next. Do we have any more to say?
Sylvia, I just want to make one comment, and, you know, I was scrolling through some of the hire and, what is it, the leaves of absence, retirements, and I just want to note that it's usually every couple of, or I guess every sports season, you notice we have a lot of volunteers that volunteer their time to help with the sports, and we're not talking just an hour a day, or they're talking 5 days a week, some of them, 3 and 4 hours, 2 to 4 hours a week, a day. I'm sorry, 2 to 4 hours a day, 5 days a week. These volunteers come in and volunteer their time to help with our sports program. So I just want to acknowledge that and put it on record that, you know, we thank them for all the time they put in and, you know, for volunteering their time.
Okay, can we do something?
You know, it's
that-
something that I think that
That's really a good
we're
idea.
very fortunate.
We
We're
are.
very, very fortunate to have these people that do that, so I would just like to say that.
Maybe we can have something written up that says thank you, like a thank you note kind of thing. That would be a really good idea. Can I have a motion for that?
Well, I don't know, should we,
Not sure exactly how to do that.
Yeah.
You what?
What would you like to do?
Just acknowledge, how would we acknowledge it for them personally?
well, that's what I'm doing basically right now, is just acknowledging it and just saying, you know, thank you from all of us that, you know, we see how much time you put in, how much effort you put in for, you know, and volunteering. You know, our coaches,
Social media posts.
Social
Free-
media
Free and
posts.
Video
fast,
posts?
social
There we
media
That'd
go.
be great.
to everybody, yeah.
Sports Recognition Day is a good time if they're all there.
Yep.
yeah,
We have a captive audience, and it's gonna be coming up in another week or two, so
Yeah.
we can have someone.
I mean, and I don't know, like, you know, I know football has volunteers, I know we just saw,
Wrestling?
wrestling has volunteers, I know.
Just about all of our sports
Just-
volunteers.
Yeah, and that's a lot
They
of
do. They
time.
put a lot of time in, for sure.
They put a lot of time into it, so I just, you know, I would like to say thank you from us and recognize all their hard work that they put in.
Thank you very much.
I'll talk to the athletic director, see if we can make sure that's acknowledged on our sports
Okay,
awards.
yeah,
That'd
there we
be
go.
great. Yeah, thank you.
Perfect timing.
Okay, the next thing is pending issues, alumni field update.
I have no update at this time.
That's kind of in limbo as of right now?
I have not been a part of any of those conversations moving forward at this point. I don't know where they are in the process, but I'll try to look into that. See if I can get an update for the next meeting.
Okay, good.
And I'd just like to say, happy Thanksgiving. How's that?
Yes, absolutely.
Hope
Make a
everyone has
motion to
great,
adjourn?
some great days off.
Second.
Okay, we have motion to adjourn and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.